Are you ready to rewind? Take a nostalgia-filled ride back to a simpler time. It's Acid Wash Memories, a retro pop culture celebration. And now your hosts, Joe Murata and Michael Quinn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 78 of Acid Wash Memories, a retro pop culture celebration. Today we're dipping back all the way to the beginning of the archives to bring to you an episode on TGIF. My name is Joe Murata. That's Michael Quinn. Hello there, Michael.
Howdy ho.
Howdy ho. So we want to mention something. We're going to break the fourth wall a little bit on this episode.
Things occurred.
Yes. So for those of you joining us for the first time, listen to a previous episode, okay?
Yeah.
There's 77 of them available. Where, Quinn?
In the archives.
In the archives. Now, if you're still with us, thank you very much. Whether you're a first-timer or a long-timer, follow us on Twitter at AWM Podcast. Join Acid Wash Memories on Facebook. But now into the nitty and the gritty, Michael Quinn.
Yes.
So this might surprise you, but Quinn and I, we talk into electronic equipment when we do this.
Usually electricity is involved, yes.
Right? So like microphones and things that record. And it's the summer as of press time.
Right.
So we have an air conditioner running.
A lot of electricity, more so than usual, running.
And apparently when somebody else in the studio operates a vacuum cleaner on the same breaker as this studio, the studio goes bye-bye.
Yeah.
Now, Quinn and I were recording a completely different episode, a completely unrelated to what you're hearing today, okay?
Yes, correct.
And we lost it.
Yep.
There's literally no way to bring it back.
Just by cutting the power off, the episode got corrupted, and that's it. That's the end of that.
We were up to the break point of it was going well. Now, we're not going to spoil what that is. It'll be probably next week's episode or sometime soon, right? Okay, so we're going to do that. But, you know, I realized, hey, Quinn, there's one thing that we haven't dipped back in and officially released on this Acid Wash Memories podcast feed, and it's the first ever pilot of Acid Wash Memories.
Pilot with the weird theme and everything.
Yes. So those of you that are ardent listeners here, you remember when I was in the process of moving, we did 2 weeks in a row of our other two episodes. Now, those were from 2020 and 2021. That was the sitcom Mount Rushmore in Death Valley.
Yes.
And that was the fast food episode. This one that we're going to be playing for you now was recorded in May of 2017.
Whoa, that's a long... I didn't even realize it was that long. I thought it was like 2 years ago or something.
Well, Quinn's not known for his timekeeping.
I can't remember. We do so much stuff.
We do so many things.
Yeah.
In case you're wondering, okay, wait a minute, Joe and Quinn. You just started this show in 2023. How are you doing Acid Wash Memories in 2017? Well, see, Quinn and I also host a wrestling podcast.
We do.
We've been doing that. Quinn, you know how long we've been doing that?
Too long. like 8 years or something.
Just about 2016, yes. And while we were in the midst of doing that one day, we were like, I think it was your idea. You're like, hey, why don't we do a show where we just talk about not wrestling?
Yeah, just something else.
And I remember sitting around and we're like, what's it going to be called? We came up with a name, Acid Wash Memories. We found this dumpy theme.
You did on this one, because I'm not the name guy.
And that is why this show, to this day, is called Acid Wash Memories.
Right.
Because this pilot we did in 2017 was known as that. When we did this at the time, we did not know if this was going to become a recurring thing. We had no idea.
It was more just for fun.
It was literally for
honest,
fun. Yeah. What we did is we ran down the TGIF lineups and we made fun of shows, and I'm sure some of our opinions have changed. It's been 7 years, so don't treat this as new. Are the mics even
good on this? I don't even know.
The audio is all remastered because I did that a few years ago.
Okay, so it's like better with what you have.
Yes, we were using our MXL 990s back then.
Wow.
Old condenser mics.
The
first. Folks, we know this is a little bit of inside baseball, but those of you that are even willing to listen to this, you probably understand what we're talking about. Quinn and I have done a wrestling show for a very long time, and this was in the midst of that a long time ago. My first child wasn't even born yet. He's 7 now.
Wow, it's pre the first, huh?
You were like 31. I was 31 still. So you're going to hear me and Quinn. We still relatively sound the same. The rhythm of our show is probably pretty sound. I haven't listened to this in years. I have no reason to want to hear myself from years ago talk.
Years ago.
But you guys do. So listen, we're going to be back next week with something completely different. I promise. So it won't be TGIF related.
Something we were supposed to have.
Something we were supposed to be doing. So folks, thank you for enduring this preamble here. We wanted to give you some new content this week.
We wanted to make sure you weren't like left in the lurch because the vacuum blew up podcast.
It's really the vacuum blew up the podcast.
We only knew it was because when we flipped the breaker back on, we came up and there was just a vacuum on in the other room.
It's like a fucking Stephen King
We were
novella.
like, what happened? And it's like, well, we know what it is now.
Yeah, it's real. Totally real. So, guys, thank you for being with us here. Remember to follow us on Twitter at AWM Podcast. Join our Facebook group. Leave us a review. And please, I beg you, do not comment on this episode as if it's new. I don't know what I said.
We have no clue what we said.
Like, please just let it be what it is. We're not sitting here and listening to it. You guys know that,
I
right?
might listen to it for funsies,
but I'm saying, like, we're not going to sit here now and play it and listen to it. I'm just putting it in post-production. Right after we're done talking, I'm putting an audio file next to this new talking.
And that's it. You will never hear from the future us ever again.
No, not until next week.
Until next week,
yes. Not until next week. So without any further ado, here it is, the first ever episode, Acid Wash Memories, May of 2017. Welcome to episode 1 of Acid Washed Memories. Today we're going to take you through TGIF. I am your host, Joe Murata, with my co-host, Michael Quinn. How are you doing, Michael Quinn?
I'm good.
Good?
Yeah.
Folks, you may be able to find us elsewhere on our Vantage Point, the Retro Wrestling Podcast. That is our main podcast as of now.
Yeah, you may have heard us.
You may have heard of us before. Perhaps you're a fan of that show.
Yeah.
But today we're not here to talk about wrestling. Oh no, we've got one topic and one topic only on episode number 1. And that is TGIF. Now, each episode, we're going to go through a particular acid-washed memory from the 1980s or 1990s. Quinn and I are both children born smack dab in the middle of the 80s, are we not?
Yes, we are. I'm 86, you're 85. We are right in the prime time, if you will.
For all that nostalgia, all the things you would see on like BuzzFeed and all these remember this, remember that type of lists.
Yeah.
We do remember it.
Yeah, we experienced it.
We experienced it, and we're here to talk to you about it. So tonight, Quinn, we're delving into TGIF, the famous ABC block of programming from the late 80s way into the 90s and even the 2000s.
Did it go that far?
It did.
Did anyone watch it past that point?
I don't believe so. And what we're going to talk about is how it got started and go through the lineups, give our reactions to some of the shows, and talk about some of the shows.
Roseanne and Tom Arnold are coming to TGIF.
How did TGIF get started? Well, this is interesting. So ABC had been kind of hit upon something nice with their show Perfect Strangers in 1986.
A great show.
Great show. Larry and Balky. I believe, Quinn, even your mom used to refer to it as Balky.
Yes, in my household, we didn't really call it Perfect Strangers. In fact, I think I was confused about the name as a young child until like the later seasons when they like lived somewhere else. But like, I just remember that we just called it Balky. And I would always look forward to just him being like the ninja thing.
Right.
Remember that thing?
Yeah, Balky the ninja character thing.
Yeah.
So they kind of started hosting these in-between segments on ABC's Friday night block in the 87-88 season.
Starting next Friday, Perfect Strangers is on a whole hour later.
I'm trying to tell them that, but we only have 5 seconds left.
5 seconds. Watch Perfect Strangers next Friday. That's new time, 9 o'clock.
8 o'clock Central and Mountain.
So for 88-89, they decide, let's start to tie this into something maybe more marketable. Something branded as something. Let's give it some cohesiveness. And they had already gone through something called the Terrific Tuesday branding, which is kind of a silly name if you think about it.
That doesn't sound right. Although they did have a Terrific Tuesday, if I recall. I think the Wonder Years and stuff was on Tuesdays.
Were they on Tuesday?
It was
Roseanne
like Tuesday or Wednesdays. Like the Wonder Years was like later, if I recall. I remember always like nearly falling asleep by the end of the Wonder Years.
Right.
Yeah, Roseanne and all those shows, of course.
So TGIF, by the way, stands for Thank Goodness It's Funny.
Really? I always thought it was Thank God It's Friday.
No, like, they want you to think that.
This whole time, you've debunked this thought in my brain that it was Thank God It's Friday.
Well, that's what we're here to do. So anyway, by 88, by 89, they have decided, let's brand this thing as TGIF. Let's have all of these shows. And at a certain point, all of them were like Miller Boyette, which is funny. And I guess we'll get to that.
It was like they put some money in ABC's pockets or something and said, we want TGIF.
Yeah. TGIF had a theme song. It was a held together 2-hour block of programming.
Right.
The original opening, I don't remember. It was these animated mice or something like that in the opening.
I don't remember that one.
Saying like it's time for a good laugh or something. I don't know.
I just remember gonna have some fun.
Sure,
TGIF,
yeah,
like
exactly.
that thing.
It's Friday night, and the mood is right. We're gonna have some fun, show you how it's done, TGIF.
But anyway, so that's how it got started. And let's take it to the lineups here. Quinn, if you want to read off the initial 1988-1989 lineup, this is Friday nights on ABC. Prime time if you're a kid to be watching television.
By the way, just before this was the fall, winter, and spring lineup. It never changed throughout the 88 and 89 season.
Perfect.
So, for the original run here, we had Perfect Strangers.
Oh, Balky
himself.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Full House.
Right, okay, that was in season 2 at that point.
With Michelle and everything.
Yeah, and Have Mercy.
Have
and
Mercy
Cut It Out.
and every iconic 90s thing you can think of. Now, the last two I'm not as familiar with. Mr. Belvedere.
Okay.
And Just the 10 of Us.
Okay.
And of course, before we get started, there was also a show that was a very big consistent through all this that would be post TGIF. And actually, it's considered part of the lineup.
I guess, yeah.
2020 with Barbara Walters and Lou Downs and all that.
I don't know how funny 2020 was, but
I mean, I would always be happy if I was up late enough to see 20. I'd be like, I'm an adult now.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
It's like
10 years old, man. I know what's going on in the world.
Exactly. Barbara Walters is going to tell me and going to interview that George Papadopoulos or whoever.
Stephanopoulos?
I don't know if Stephanopoulos is there, but what was the old guy with the weird hair?
There's a lot of them, Quinn, if we're talking about.
The correspondent.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
So let's start with the lead-in show. So Perfect Strangers was the initial 8 o'clock show.
Right.
I loved Perfect Strangers.
Oh, me too. Big fan.
That was more of an adult-oriented show, especially for this lineup.
Yeah, it is for this lineup. However, it's very goofy. Like it's in no situation in life would this be normal or like this isn't some normal two guys living together situation.
No, this is a somewhat uptight, neurotic man, Larry Appleton, who moved in from Wisconsin to Chicago to work there.
Right.
And his distant cousin from this fictional island of Mypos, which is kind of like Greek Mediterranean thing.
It's not real, right?
It's not real.
Yeah.
He moves in with him, and of course, all sorts of immigrant hijinks follow.
Belky, you wrote a check for an apple and a pack of gum?
Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. I also got you this nice bug light.
Balky doesn't understand anything, basically, the show. And it also had one of the best opening themes I can recall on the entire lineup here. Like,
I love the opening to Perfect Strangers.
You know, where they're walking through Chicago.
Great location shots of Chicago.
And Balky is like, he's on the back of the horse or whatever.
No, he's touching the horse.
No, but he goes on the back of like this thing with hay
horse and carriage and says America or burst.
Yeah. And then they're like jogging or something.
Jogging, sure.
By Lake
Park,
Michigan.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
And, of course, who could forget them getting stuck in the revolving door?
And then remember in the later season, they're like dressed up in like suits or something and coming up from the subway.
Yes, and Balky's got like suit shorts on.
Yes, because only Balky doesn't know anything. So it's like every single thing Balky does, it's like slightly wrong. It's not completely wrong, but he's like good-natured, so like no one gives him a problem.
Of course, and the irony of the show is that really Balky is wiser than Larry.
Right.
He just is not accustomed to the American culture just yet.
Right. He seems a little silly, but he's really the smart one.
Right. So we're smack dab in the middle of that show's run there, and the 8:30 show then would be Full House in its second season. What a great show. When you're a kid, but even now as an adult, I love Full House.
Oh, yeah. It's a fantastic show.
Iconic.
I know the revival kind of made me think about...
It soured some people, but it also reignited, I think, the love for the original.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's got a great feel to it where you're like... You feel like, you know, this could be your family or something because it's like nuclear the way it is. It's like it's not like a typical family where like it's mom and dad and blah blah. I like the idea of the situation that, you know, this guy's wife died, and his friends and brother-in-law come in to help raise the kids. And hijinks ensue.
Whoa, Joey, this is a living thing. You don't just stick it in a pot. Use a meat rack. I'm an idiot. Come on. Okay. All right, good. All right, settle down here. There we go.
Are you going to cook Michelle?
We're changing her diaper.
Oh, then how do you roast a turkey?
And another great intro.
Oh, yeah.
Another great theme song.
Yeah, everywhere you look.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It really, and it's so 90s. Like, I know it started in the 80s, but like, a lot of people, like, the way it looks. Like, all the catchphrases.
The house itself.
The house itself, which we had arguments
on.
We
have yet to figure quite out, between the two of us anyway, how each staircase in each different room, the kitchen and the living room, could connect to the same place. But that's a topic for a different show.
Yeah, we should have an episode about 90s house layouts or something.
Should.
Yeah.
So the 9 o'clock show, this is strange. You're right. Mr. Belvedere. Now, Mr. Belvedere was a show, folks, and Quinn, actually ran from 85 until 1990. So
this was like near the end.
Yeah, and it had a sizable run. The thing I always remembered of Mr. Belvedere, and I don't ever remember seeing it on TGIF.
It wasn't even on Nick at Night, was it?
No.
Is this the guy that was the he was like
British?
He was like a
nanny,
a butler or something.
He's like a British nanny butler that lives with them, and he's the sage, and he helps them through their problems. But do you remember who the dad was?
No.
Bob Uecker.
Oh, really? Bob Uecker, Mr. Baseball himself.
Yes, he was the
very
dad.
Interesting.
I guess it's just not like when I was a kid. You know, cutting classes, hanging around that sleazy arcade on First Street, playing till midnight, and then sneaking in my window so my old man wouldn't catch me.
It was an okay show. I was never a big fan of it as a kid.
I mean, like, basically he was replaced by, what was the guy from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you remember?
Jeffrey.
Yes. Like, basically Jeffrey became the Mr. Belvedere of the 90s.
Basically.
But on a different network.
And now we've got, for the 9:30 show, the death slot, technically. I mean, really, the 9:30 show was never the important one.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, okay, the adults are ready to watch 2020. Like,
exactly. Like, go to bed. Go to bed. It's Friday. You stayed up long enough.
Yeah.
Just the 10 of us. Now, I don't remember this one really. This is a Miller Boyette, I believe. And
I mean, I'll tell you from the logo here, it looks like Miller Boyette all the way.
It's basically about this gym teacher who, like, it's true, who, like, has a wife and there's a bunch of kids. Like, he has, like, 8 kids. So
now,
10 of them is him and his wife and his 8 kids.
Now, I hear here it's a spinoff of Growing Pains, which is another...
Growing Pains, yeah. And that was never part of the TGIF lineup, but it was an ABC staple for many years.
Oh, yeah. Growing Pains was definitely one of my favorites. I love that show, and I love also their kitchen, by the way. But
you're a big fan of the Growing Pains kitchen.
Well, they had, like, that Florida room-style kitchen with all the plants and, like, the eating nook. Like, I don't know. But just the 10 of us, really, this was before my time, I think.
Yeah, me too.
And not necessarily before my time, like I was alive, but it wasn't something I was
not in your memory
looking forward to or anything.
But what if we jump ahead now to the 1989-1990 season as the TGIF lineup starts to take place? We start with a different lead, Quinn. What do we have?
So now they've moved Full House to the opening slot,
as I always remember
spot,
yep.
and that's really, I remember Full House was the Big Bang at the beginning.
Yep.
It was like, right, but now there's a new addition.
Who do we have?
A spinoff of Perfect Strangers, Family Matters.
That's right. Not a lot of people. A lot of people, when they think Family Matters,
yeah,
they think, "Can I do that?" Urkel show, right?
Yeah.
Family Matters actually started out as a spinoff. Harriet Winslow was the spinoff character from Perfect Strangers.
She was the elevator operator, right?
At the Chronicle, yes.
Yes.
Mind if I use your phone?
Don't touch that phone.
You want to rephrase that, baby?
Even Carl and Eddie appeared in a couple of Perfect Strangers episodes.
Hi, Balky.
Hey, cub.
So when you get to Family Matters, one of the ideas, I've heard this, was a working class version, like a blue collar version of the Cosbys. And if you look closely, you can kind of see the parallels.
Carl's a cop and
Cliff was a doctor.
And Harriet is a working mother.
Claire was a lawyer.
Right.
Eddie is very similar to Theo in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah. He's kind of a doof.
Yeah.
Like, he's good-hearted, and he's not really stupid. He's just stupidly youthful.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
It's like he makes dumb mistakes, but I remember as it went on, it was like, no, Eddie's not dumb. He's just a kid. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. And the same way that Theo grew up as the years went on, so did Eddie.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
He became a cop himself, actually, towards the very end.
When it moved to like a different network or something.
CBS,
like CBS.
yeah.
I remember there was an episode where Eddie might have been shot in like a shootout or
yeah,
something.
That's right.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. So the thing with Family Matters is for the first season, and this was its first season, 89-90, is Urkel was not in every episode. He was actually just a guest recurring character he was in about half the episodes.
Yeah, I mean, the show really became Urkelized.
I'd say by season 3.
It wasn't by this season, though. He was just kind of like their idiot next door neighbor. Like, he wasn't stupid. I mean, he was like a genius, but he was... Doof. He didn't understand things. So basically, Family Matters for its first season or two was very much a normal family sitcom, very much like Full House in a lot of ways. And I'm sure as the lineup goes on, and we'll probably be hitting Family Matters a lot, we'll go into a little bit of what happened to the show.
Exactly. So then what do we have after that, Quinn?
We had Perfect Strangers returning.
It got the prime time, 9 o'clock spot now.
Now, Perfect Strangers went on for a couple more seasons, but we're in the we're more in the thick of it, right?
We're in the middle of the run,
The middle of the run. We're not yet at when they like get married and move into that house or whatever.
A little bit later.
Okay.
And then we have...
Just the 10 of Us.
Again, which I guess it ended.
I can't believe it returned because it never came back after that.
It's not really one of the more notable shows. So as we move on to the 1990-91 season, this is the first season I truly remember watching as it happened.
This is probably, this is definitely when I watched because there's a difference here than most of the other seasons.
Right.
Originally, these were all fall, spring, winter, like everything, like they were all throughout.
Consistent, yep.
Now we have like modifications as we go through the seasons here. So throughout the entire run of 1990 and 91, Full House was fall, winter, and spring.
Correct.
However, Family Matters only was around for fall and winter.
At the 8:30 spot.
In the spring, they decided to bring in the 8:30 spot Dinosaurs.
So that's
Jim Henson's Dinosaurs.
Yes. Now that is a show that a lot of people that I know seem to misremember as a kids show, but it really was somewhat of a darker adult sitcom.
So Dinosaurs you may remember it as like the show with the baby, the baby dinosaurs. I'm the baby, like all that bullshit.
Not the mama, not the mama, not the mama.
Not the mama, that stuff, yeah.
But it really was basically,
it was
think
like
of
a Roseanne.
Full House, Family Matters, if you want to relate it to TGIF.
Sure.
With dinosaurs, like animatronics, like it was like this was Jim Henson's one of his last projects, I believe.
Yeah.
Like I don't think in fact, I think he had passed away by the time it started.
I think you're right.
But this was one of his last works, so there was some hype there. I remember that there. Jim Henson made this or whatever.
Yep.
And it was kind of, if you think about it, it was revolutionary for its time because it was an entire show with no people in it.
Yeah, I mean, the closest you had would be like the 60s with the Flintstones as a sitcom.
Yeah, but it wasn't
animated,
yeah.
Right.
So it had very elaborate sets. I remember that, like animatronic dinosaurs, and like they seemed very lifelike at the time.
Very well done.
If you look back at it, it's not anything. But it basically, they even had like almost like an Eddie character, like the kid with the mohawk dinosaur, and Carl version of like the dinosaur dad. I don't even remember his name.
And he was fat.
Yeah, he was just huge. And then like basically again like Harriet, but she was like a stay-at-home mom, that dinosaur.
Right.
And then they also had the daughter.
And for the record, Dinosaurs actually ran until 1994.
But I don't believe it does return to TGIF later. So but at a different time.
So what do we got next for the 9 o'clock?
So the 9 o'clock spot, again, split. In the fall and winter, Perfect Strangers returned into its same slot at 9. By the time we got to the spring, Family Matters was moved to the 9 o'clock slot, and because Dinosaurs took its place at the 8:30 slot.
Okay, so at this point in time, Perfect Strangers is still okay, but it's nearing the end of its run.
Right, it's still getting a 13.5 in the ratings, number 37 though.
Overall,
all they cared about is the numbers back then, because everyone got. This is an era where if you weren't on cable, if you were on the networks, you were getting in the teens or something for ratings. Yeah. So it's like, because most people had that.
And what was Family Matters?
Family Matters was getting a 15.8 in that same slot.
Wow.
Come the spring. So Family Matters was moving on up. Although Family Matters still retained at number 16 for the season or whatever.
16 is good.
Yeah.
That's honestly, that's
and by
not
the way,
bad.
Full House, I didn't say was getting a 16 rating with a number 15. So it was right ahead of Family Matters.
Which makes sense because it was a better show.
Now, here's where things get interesting.
What do we got?
In the 9:30 slot, the death slot, so just the 10 of us is now just gone.
Good.
F that show. Nobody cared about that show. But to replace it is more garbage. Going Places for fall and winter. Now, okay. I know you want to talk about Going Places.
You and I, every now and then, will throw on the intro of Going Places from YouTube.
Yeah, Going Places is like the most Miller Boyetti intro I've ever seen in my life.
It's every single trope of like a Miller Boyette, Full House, Perfect Strangers, Family Matters intro you can think of. The cheesy theme song, the inspirational lyrics,
right.
The happy chorus, characters smiling confidently as they're introduced.
And like walking in and bumbling around, like always like when their name shows up, they might like trip over something or drop something.
Yes.
Like,
and then of course the tag scene.
This is my favorite part.
Where they're all making dinner, dancing around like freaking idiots.
Yeah. Dancing around like fools. And then this is my favorite. This is also another favorite of the opening is the fact that how like in Full House they're like in a car at the end.
Oh yes.
There's a pan out shot where they're in a car like going places.
They're going places.
They're going somewhere in like a retro looking car, like a 60s car, just like Full House, and like it pans out of the city just like Family Matters.
Awful.
Like, just ridiculous.
Awful.
And you want to go on what it was actually about?
Yeah, the whole thing with Going Places is it was designed to be ABC's adult sitcom, hence its 9:30 spot.
Well, adult in a Miller Boyette sense.
Yeah, about as adult as Miller Boyette can get.
Right.
And it was about television writers.
Right.
Very strange.
Super meta, actually.
Very meta.
And weren't they like aspiring actors too? Some of them are there was an agent.
There might have been one that was an actor. And I know they brought in a younger Stacey Keenan.
Yes.
From another show.
From another show that we'll get to. Well, we should say so
step
that
by step.
Step by step.
Don't delay. It's time to play the Monopoly game. I want to be the hat. You want to be the hat? Because I want to be the hat. Okay, I'll be the hat.
The show sucked, and Quinn and I tried to watch a couple episodes. It's a bad show.
It's not very good. It's basically it's your typical Miller Boyette fare, but just they try to make it adult-y, sort of.
Right. Not good.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that bringing in Stacey Keenan was supposed to make it younger or something.
Yeah,
it's
I
like
think
they
so.
realized they fucked up, and then they were like, let's change this.
Now, did it even make it the whole TGIF season in that slot?
It made it to the winter. So get this.
Okay.
Basically, they try to replace it with another show.
What is that?
Baby Talk.
Okay.
Do you know anything about Baby Talk?
I do. Baby Talk was basically Look Who's Talking, the sitcom.
Oh, it's that show. I remember that, but that lasted a couple weeks, right?
Well, it actually lasted 2 seasons, but not in that slot.
So they just were like, get out of here.
Right. So now, first of all, it was Baby Mickey instead of Mikey. And do you know who the voice of Baby Mickey was?
It was some celebrity, right?
It was a pretty famous sitcom actor.
Who?
Tony Danza.
Well, that's a good pick because in the original, who was it again? I remember
Bruce Willis.
It was that's what. I thought it was Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
I didn't want to just state that, but it was okay. So it was Bruce Willis. That show got a 14 in the ratings and a number 30 though.
How did it crack the top 30?
Well, just barely, but
still,
probably from TGIF. But I'm assuming they moved it to like Tuesday or Wednesday, right? Did they move it to Thursday to compete against NBC? Maybe.
I doubt it. You're going to tell me that there were only 29 other shows better than it?
Well,
on television.
It's also there's only so many shows in a night, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's true. How long did that last? Because apparently it was replaced.
So it doesn't tell me how long it lasted. However, it says they just moved Perfect Strangers to the 9:30 slot because Family Matters took the 9 o'clock spot. So
that's
then they
good.
shifted Perfect Strangers back. So that's kind of an optimal lineup if you think about it. By the end in the spring, they had Full House, Dinosaurs, Family Matters, Perfect Strangers.
That's much better because Perfect Strangers is the true adult show because they never pandered to kids on that. Balky was goofy. There was never even kids on the show.
No, I don't recall there being kids. It was just two adults and
together. Goofy hijinks and everything, but it's a great show.
Fantastic
so much
show.
fun. So let's move on to 91, 92. I do want to make one more mention here before we do that. 1990, 91. That's the first season with the iconic theme. It's Friday night and the moon is right.
Right,
Gonna
okay,
have
yeah,
some
yeah.
fun. That
Okay.
song.
Never, and I can't stress this enough, ever fucking do that again.
So anyways, we move on to 91, 92. What do we got on tap, Quinn?
Okay, so now this is more the lineup I remember.
Okay.
Now,
As do I.
Full House is completely out of the picture.
That's right, because
it moved to Tuesday,
moved
didn't
to
it?
Tuesdays at 8.
I remember more Full House being on Tuesday.
Yep.
So this becomes like a staple for many years from this point on.
Yep.
Family Matters in the opening slot.
Totally made sense.
Yep.
Great show.
It's a good way to open. So then,
New Kid on the Block next.
right, New Kid on the Block, step by step, Stacey Keenan moves to a much better show.
So now, how did these two shows do in the ratings this time around?
Okay, so now Family Matters has moved up to 20. Actually, it's moved back.
Move back.
To 28, number 28, 13.5 rating. So it's got the shift hurt it.
It's still in the top 30.
Now, Step by Step, its debut season got a 13 and a number 35 on the ratings.
Not bad for a
Now,
debut.
You also have to remember cable's starting to become a thing at this point.
Yeah, it's becoming more prevalent.
As the years go by, I'm assuming these ratings are going to go down because cable.
Right, because cable. Now, Step by Step, let's talk about that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
That was somewhat of a reimagined 90s version of the Brady Bunch.
Right, and I think it was a good recovery from going places. It was the way to do the way what they needed to do.
That was a good addition for Miller Boyette there.
Yeah.
What you had basically was Dallas's Patrick Duffy as a dad,
Yep.
Frank Lambert, and he had 3 kids. He had JT, Al, Alicia, but she was always called Al.
Yeah, and the
tomboy.
other kid, I don't remember.
Brandon.
Brandon.
But no one cared about Brandon.
Brandon sucked. He was the shitty kid.
He was the shittiest
because there
kid.
always is. It's like, remember in Family Matters there was the other sister,
Judy Winslow.
Yeah, and she was in like a couple of seasons, and they just like they got to the point where she was in the opening, just like playing with her dollhouse, and then you would never see her. Like she was only in the opening.
It's true.
Just like sometimes like Grandma on Family Matters she would just be swinging the tennis racket in the opening, but then like she'd only appear if there was like sage advice needed. Like,
Mother Winslow, you mean?
Mother Winslow, yeah.
Mother Winslow.
Yeah.
But yeah, so with Step by Step, you had Frank Lambert, a contractor, this took place. Working man. This took place in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Very strange setting for a sitcom. And of course, he marries on a like one night stand type of thing in Jamaica, I believe.
Oh, really? I thought it was quick, but I didn't think it was that like one night standing thing. But he gets married to Three's Company's own Suzanne Summers,
Carol Foster, and she has, of course, 3 kids of her own.
Right.
And she has Dana, played by Stacey Keenan. She has
oh man,
Millie, what's her name? Karen.
That's
Karen
it.
is the middle
and then
child.
The dorky kid. I don't Mark. Yeah. So
the dorky kid with the Sally Jesse Raphael glasses.
And now, if you remember, in the original season, there was also some kind of grandma character.
well, because for the first year, Carol's like fucking hair salon is like connected to her house. Remember?
No, that's later.
Yes.
That it's connected.
That's the first season too.
Oh, but when does Balky come in as like a French guy?
We'll get to that later. Please hold the Balky until later. So for the first season, next to the house is Carol's hair salon with Grandma and her fat sister.
Wait, what?
Carol's fat sister.
I don't remember the sister.
It's real.
But I do remember in their backyard, Cody lived.
In a van.
They're like
Frank's nephew.
Their strung out nephew who was like, he was definitely on drugs.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like
no, the fat grandma and the fat sister, are only for season 1. The fat sister is a Patrika Darbo character actor.
Oh wait, I remember her now.
Yeah, and Peggy Rhea is the mom. But there's more Step by Step to come. I know that much. So
it gets very confusing.
Okay,
so now the 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock gets very strange.
Why don't you do it by season?
Okay. So in the fall, Perfect Strangers takes the 9 o'clock spot now.
Good.
And I think Perfect Strangers is starting to fade out now. I don't think...
It is. It's got one more year left.
We definitely have to be nearing the house season.
This might even be... I think the next season is the house season.
Okay, so what happens in Perfect Strangers basically is Balky and Corson Larry, they go and get married.
To
their longtime girlfriends in the show.
Jennifer and Marianne.
And so now they try to change the show into this like two married couples that live together.
Right.
In like a big old
house.
Well, the joke was it was like they bought this giant house thinking they got a great deal, but it was like all broken and they were always like fixing it up.
Larry and Jennifer bought it.
Yeah.
And they couldn't afford it
Yeah.
without having two people live with them. And of course, that would be Balky and Marianne.
And then they decide to, basically it's them fixing the house. It turns into the money pit, basically, the show.
Yeah, right.
And the washer dryers, the bubbles. And
dancing around.
Yeah,
the usual.
Shit like that. So then in the 9:30 slot that year, Baby Talk gets brought back. So I thought Baby Talk was gone, but apparently it gets brought back. But Baby Talk, I guess, is really shitty or something because so by the winter they say no, that Baby Talk is going to replace Perfect Strangers in the 9 o'clock. So maybe hoping that would help it, right?
Right, of course.
But now they've taken Perfect Strangers completely out of the loop. I believe they tried moving Perfect Strangers to another night.
Okay.
Or something. I don't know. Or
it moved to Saturdays. Moved to Saturdays.
Yeah, and that's really death.
That's a death slot. Yeah.
And then a show comes in called Billy. I've never heard of this.
Billy was a spin-off, believe it or not.
Oh my God, I see.
Head of the Class.
What the fuck was that?
And you know how long it was on? For 3 months in 1992.
Oh my God.
I don't know anything about it other than it was the teacher from Head of the Class.
Yeah.
So that is the winter. What do we have for spring of 92 now?
So then, apparently, I guess they figured, well, Baby Talk's not working again in 9 o'clock, so they move it to 9:30, and they bring back Dinosaurs, which I know Dinosaurs is on Tuesdays at some point.
It was. Yeah, it was.
So Dinosaurs is now, in the spring, now back into TGIF.
It's really getting a little loopy there on TGIF in 92.
The 9 o'clock, they can't figure out what to do with the 9 o'clock hour.
And the 9:30, apparently.
Well, I'm saying the whole hour. The hour as a whole.
Right.
So
do we have more stability for 92, 93, hopefully?
Well, okay. So the 92, 93 season's strange because now we go to this only the fall and the spring.
Okay.
There's no winter.
There's no winter.
I don't know if that's a reclassification or something. Oh, but it's only for a year.
I don't know what that's about.
Yeah.
Maybe that means it stayed the same. I don't know.
Maybe it stayed the same. I don't know. But anyway, so Family Matters, the anchor in the first slot, of course.
It's becoming very Urkelized by 92,
it's
93.
Super Urkelized, and the ratings are going down.
What are we at?
Now we're at 32 at a 12.6 rating.
Okay.
Not dramatic, but they were at 28 previously, so that's a 4 slot down.
Okay.
Step by step, kind of gaining some footing now. But now, so initially in the fall, they decide to keep Dinosaurs, right?
Okay, so Dinosaurs was still Dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs was still there.
But Dinosaurs now is down to a 10.1 rating and only number 61 in the rankings. That's terrible. That's really, really bad.
What's weird though is it stayed on for a while longer.
But I think Dinosaurs, I feel like it only lasted 3 seasons, in my memory of it, So
right.
I can totally see what was going on there. And now they bring in a show called Camp Wilder. Do you remember that?
What was that, the 9:30?
That was the 9:30.
I don't remember it, all honesty.
It's about a young woman who opens up her home to the friends of her younger siblings who sought a judgment-free hangout and who regularly went to her advice.
Judgment-free hangout?
This sounds terrible.
I don't remember this show
if it's Miller Boyette or anything. Yeah, I don't remember this at all. So that apparently sucked because it was number 77 in the 9:30 slot.
Well, at least it cracked the 100.
With a 9.1 rating on network TV is awful.
Yeah, relative to everything else, especially.
So then
for the spring,
that whole 9 o'clock hour was ass. Seriously, that's a terrible performance on both parts.
It is. You're right.
Even Dinosaurs. So
damn it, Dinosaurs! No wonder you're extinct.
So then they hit the spring, and they keep Family Matters and Step by Step because those are doing great,
of course.
And they go, let's bring in a show called Getting By.
Yeah, this one was weird. This was Aunt Rachel from Family Matters, but it's different character. But Thelma Hopkins.
Wait, they gave Aunt Rachel. We forgot to mention Aunt Rachel.
Thelma Hopkins. She was actually a very famous singer with Tony Orlando and Dawn. She was one of his singers.
Tony Orlando and Dawn.
That's the name of his singers was Dawn.
I'm not familiar with that. Were they all big in the 70s or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know Tony Orlando.
I've heard of Tony Orlando.
He guest starred on The Cosby Show once. But everyone guest starred on The Cosby Show.
Was that the challenge tap dancer guy? Or who
That's a different guy.
Challenge!
And then, that show is number 39. So that's a little better. That's much better than Dinosaurs,
well,
right?
Thelma Hopkins was a big name.
Right. But I don't think that would be enough to... You would have to be 30 at least, I would think, for them to keep you, right?
I guess. I don't know.
Well, anyway, then 9:30 gets Where I Live?
Sure. That was a show that barely lasted, and that starred Doug E. Doug, who you might know. You might know, Quinn, and maybe you folks
Doug
will
E. Doug.
too.
So I need to see a picture of him.
Doug E. Doug was Griffin on Cosby.
Griffin. Was he Theo's friend?
No, not the Cosby Show.
Oh, Cosby.
Remember Griffin?
I don't remember, because Cosby, all I remember is like he's not the same or something. Like, and it was like baffling to me as a kid.
But he's
Cosby.
still married to Felicia Rashad.
Yeah, it's like, but it's not him.
It's not him.
And it's
though.
like he's not even. He never was a doctor.
Nope.
And he's like a working class guy.
Doesn't he work like an airport or something?
Yeah,
in that?
like it's so strange.
Florist, what is he?
That was one of the most disconcerting shows. Like, I was so confused by it.
I was
Their
too
house
for a
is
while.
like different.
Yeah, and they only had one kid.
Yeah, but Where I Live, never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
Let's move on to 93,
get outta here.
94.
This seems like it was like kind of a disaster, because the 93-94 season, I'm going to tell you this.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one of the strongest lineups, the most memorable lineup to me. And then you can see some recovery in the ratings too.
I will say you are correct in a sense, although my personal favorite lineup was the one that had Full House in the 8 o'clock spot, but that's only because it's the first one I remember.
Yeah, to me, Full House always more belonged in the Tuesday slot.
I think it did
well. It was a
there.
stronger show, and it didn't need to be in the TGIF slot.
I mean,
that's why these are like the fond memories I have.
I'm going to agree with you here. So why don't you give us a rundown, Michael?
So they went with this for the most part for the fall, winter, and spring. There's only with one exception.
Mm-hmm.
So Family Matters, of course, and Family Matters now has a ratings recovery. It's the same rating of a 12.6. However, they move up to the 30th spot.
Not bad.
So that's
still top 30.
Top 30, right?
Yep.
Now they bring in a favorite for, I bet, a lot of our fans.
Especially people a bit younger than us, maybe.
Yeah, Boy
even.
Meets World comes in. Now, this is the original season where they're like young and they go to the different school, and like Topanga's like in his class as a kid, and like Mr. Feeney's the teacher
the
and
actual
not the
teacher
principal.
or the dean or whatever he became.
Yeah.
And Topanga's like a hippie.
Yeah.
And Eric is kind of he's not as stupid. He's just like, he doesn't care.
Athletic or something.
Yeah. And his sister, Corey's sister, is still on the show. Remember when she like disappeared and they came back?
And Mr. Feeney still lives next door, but again, he's the teacher.
Mr.
And, like,
Matthews.
Mr. Matthews. And also there's like the dad owns the grocery store. He doesn't own the grocery store. He's like the head of the grocery store or something.
Yup. And it's a good show.
And that sister is in it too. The first version of her, because they replaced her, I believe.
Yes, they did replace her.
Yeah.
So Boy Meets World was kind of the spiritual successor to the Wonder Years, but
you think?
in sitcom form. Yeah,
well, just because of Savage.
Well, yeah, it's Ben Savage, folks. You probably know that show. If you're born in the 80s or early 90s, you would probably know Boy Meets World. It will become a staple of TGIF, as we'll see later on.
Right.
So what did they move to the 9 o'clock spot then, Michael?
Step by Step. And I remember Step by Step was in here for a while.
Yeah, and Step by Step was still an okay show in 93, 94.
It was starting to mature, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
They were finding their legs, and I know there was a lot of very special episodes. Like, remember that time, like
Dana almost got raped?
Yeah, and Cody had to like step up or something.
And be Kickboxer Part 2 or whatever.
Yeah, and then like Dana stops hating him after that.
Yeah.
And
I remember when Dana also started dating Nelson from Full House.
I don't know if
Rich
that,
Halke.
I don't know if that happened by this point, because
It didn't.
No, there's
none of that did.
I remember there was this moment in Step by Step, and I felt like as a kid, right?
Yeah.
That the show like disappeared for some reason, and I don't know why I thought this, but then like they come back one season, all the kids seem like dramatically older. They're like more teenagery.
They never took a break.
They never did. I know. It's just in my brain. You never thought this?
No.
Okay.
What do we got going on for 9:30?
9:30. These are some good memories for me.
Okay.
So they bring in Hanging with Mr. Cooper. I love this freaking show.
Now, this, folks, was another attempt
Right.
to have an adult-oriented show.
Yeah.
And it was starring Mark Curry as
Right.
Mark Cooper,
Was
I
an
think.
up-and-coming comedian at the time.
At the time, and he played, if I remember correctly, like
high school basketball coach.
and he was like an ex-basketball player, right?
So he was going to do things for the kids now that he was retired.
And this is another Miller boy, of course. And his best friend, but also love interest later, was Vanessa, if I recall.
Vanessa, yes. And in the first season, there was another roommate who was like more their age.
Yes.
You remember this?
Yes, I do.
I forget her name because she was only for one season.
Mm-hmm.
But she was there instead of the freaking the mom with the kid with Raven Simone and all that, which was later.
Was it Raven Simone?
Yeah, she was the daughter.
Now, wasn't Denise from Full House also on the show for a while?
It wasn't Denise, though. It was definitely Raven Simone was the daughter. But not initially. Again, remember, Hanging with Mr. Cooper was more of an adult show initially.
Yeah, you're right that Raven Simone was on it, but I think Denise from Full House.
Yeah, she was like a friend or something.
She was on the show sometimes.
Well, after her show collapsed on like some other thing. Remember with the kid?
That's a different thing. Yeah.
Anyway, then I guess they like were test running Hanging with Mr. Cooper.
I think they moved it around.
That fall and winter. So then they decide to bring Sister Sister into the 9:30 slot.
That's its first season.
Now, Sister Sister is a very notable show, but I recall it being on Tuesdays more.
Well, the thing with Sister Sister, Quinn, is that it was only briefly on ABC. It actually moved to WB very soon. In fact, I'll tell you when. Oh, yeah. You didn't know that?
Oh, man. I remember it mostly as an ABC show.
No.
Sister.
Never knew how much I missed you. Now everybody knows I ain't ever gonna let you go.
Hey TGI fuckhead. Didn't I tell you to cut that shit out?
Sister. And it has a very strong showing, by the way, Sister Sister at 9:30.
What do we get out of it?
Number 32 for the first season at 12.4 rating. That's
no way.
That's really no wonder they moved it out.
Well, I'll get to what it was in a second, but just so you know, Quinn. So it was a mid-season replacement in April of 94.
Yeah.
It was only on ABC until April of 95. It was then picked up by the WB in September of 95.
Wow, it was that short, huh?
And it ran until 99.
Yeah, I know it went pretty long.
Now, Sister Sister starred twin sisters,
Tia and
Tamara Mowry, and their younger brother, Taj, was Teddy on Full House. He also later on had his own show called Smart Guy.
Are you sure they had
Mowry.
a younger brother?
Taj Mowry.
Okay.
Teddy from Full House.
Well, here's the thing.
Don't doubt me.
The thing with this show was that the mom and dad were not married. They were separated at birth or something.
I mean, in real life, their younger brother.
Oh, okay. I'm just talking about the kayfabe of it. But
I'm not kayfabe.
That's the storyline.
That's a wrestling term meaning storyline, folks, if you're not familiar with the great art form of professional wrestling. No, their real life, Quinn, younger brother, Taj Mowry. He was Teddy on Full House.
Right.
And he also had his own show later on called Smart Guy. Remember he was in high school, but he was like 10 or something?
Yeah. I remember Smart Guy. That show was dumb.
It was really dumb. But yeah, Sister Sister was good. Tim Reed was the dad.
Yeah.
And it was basically like, what was that? The Parent Trap?
Yeah, it was basically the Parent Trap. It was the Parent Trap. But I don't think, the thing about that show is, if I recall, the parents never got together. There was like a suggestion.
Oh, no.
There was like one episode where they thought maybe, but it didn't work out. They
never did. The mom, they were both nice parents, too.
But they were complete opposites.
Complete opposites. That was the whole humor in the show, was that they were complete opposites. Good show, though. Always liked it as a kid.
Yeah. Now, look, Ray, I'd rather have my eyes sewn shut, my toenails ripped off backwards, stuffed up my nose, and my teeth.
Enough foreplay.
And let's run through 94, 95.
Okay. 94 and 95. Fall, winter, spring, Family Matters, of course, because it's awesome.
Yep.
But now it's like, if I recall, it's very Urkelized at this point. It's like, I want to say like we're getting to the point when the Urkel theme song existed and all that. Like, and then Stefan is a thing.
94, I think 95 is where Stefan first appears. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So and he becomes a big driver in that show.
He's so annoying by then. Urkel is so fucking annoying by this period of time.
The Stefan thing was a good refresher for me. For that show.
It was different.
It was different. And it was like, he has a cool character.
Sure.
And it would appear rarely enough. Sure. Remember they eventually like got to the point where he made like a cloning machine and then they turned the Steve clone into Stefan so that Stefan could just exist as a separate thing.
Yeah. We're getting close to that. So how did that do in the ratings this year?
35, 11.6.
Okay.
Not bad. Boy Meets World from fall to winter in the 8:30 slot.
Okay.
Step by step the whole way through.
9 o'clock?
Yeah, but Step by Step had a drop in the ratings at number 40.
Had a drop in quality, too.
Yeah. Well, we're not yet at the teenage years for the kids, but
this is where it starts to get not as good.
The teenage years were the revival for me. And then hanging with Mr. Cooper the whole time.
Hanging in.
Now, for some odd reason in the spring, they decided to bring in a show called On Our Own.
Sure.
And move Boy Meets World.
And I clearly remember this show. What this ran from 94 until April of 95.
Okay, yeah.
This was the show where basically It was all orphans.
Yes.
And the oldest brother was like the captain of the orphans.
They like lived on their own without parents or something.
Yeah, and they were all related in real life. And guess who they were all related to?
Raven Simone, right?
No, Denise from Full House.
This was the Denise one. Sorry.
This was the Denise one. Journey Smollett.
Check out the Jericho family. I'm Josh, the oldest brother. We've been on our own since we lost our parents.
Now, by the way, wasn't Journey Smollett on Friday Night Lights?
Yes, actually, great show. By the way, one of the
really good
5
show.
Seasons, just long enough. Great show, and
You care about the characters.
You care about the characters. She had a prominent role in that show too.
She was a main actor.
Yeah, I always thought that was going to bring her back, but I haven't really seen her in anything since then.
She's about our age. Anyway,
that was the 1994-95 lineup. We're halfway through the 90s here.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy actually, that show, because I remember being very excited for it.
Really?
Yes, when it came out.
I remember being taken off guard that it existed. It was like only like 8 weeks long or something, I think. It failed.
It was
hard.
not long. So, all right, Quinn. So we've gotten halfway there. We're actually about halfway through the original TGIF lineup as it is.
Yep.
So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this.
Tomorrow, you'll say TGIF when Full House is their season premiere, Lost in Paradise.
The plane.
Then the comedy's family sized.
I told your mama she can move in with us.
The premiere of Family Matters. Make way for the hottest guys on wheels, the season premiere of Perfect Strangers. Fall under the spell of the cutest. Which on television, a sneak preview of Free Spirit. The new season begins for Full House, Family Matters, Perfect Strangers, and Free Spirit tomorrow.
We now return with more Acid Washed Memories. And welcome back to Acid Washed Memories. Quinn, we have a mini memory we're going to go over here. It's one that I know you've told me about many times, and I believe it ties in nicely to what we're talking about today. On April 22nd, 1994, that happened to be a Friday, and something kind of important in American history happened that evening. Former President Richard Nixon died.
Yes.
Would you like to share this memory?
Yes, I was watching ABC. I believe, what would have been on during this?
9 o'clock in the spring of 94. You were watching Step by Step.
So I'm watching Step by Step, and we cut in ABC News with, what was it?
Peter Jennings.
Peter Jennings cuts in, and he goes, ladies and gentlemen, Richard Nixon has died.
I'm Peter Jennings at ABC News headquarters. We have heard just a couple of minutes ago that President Nixon may have died, and we emphasize that is a rumor at this point.
And you're, going on 8 years old.
Right.
So you're very impressionable.
I'm very impressionable, and I don't understand. First of all, I don't really know who he is. They just said former president.
Right.
So it's like I'm like, oh man, this is really terrible. And I the memory I have of it is that I was like, it's going to be important, like whatever is the first thing that happens after Peter Jennings says this or whatever, right? So he gives us this whole Richard Nixon was blah blah blah, and this is what he did, and
right.
blah blah blah, and he's passed away at 80 something. I don't know how
81,
old.
I think he was.
Yeah. And it cuts to commercial, and I'm like, oh my God, the first commercial after Richard Nixon died. And so, it was always just a funny memory that stood out to me, that like I cared enough to like have to note in my brain like that the first commercial after Richard Nixon, like it's like a different world now that we don't have Richard Nixon alive. Like, and like not only that, mind you, like looking back at it, thinking of it, it's like, do you realize like how much that just doesn't matter because there's commercials on other channels, like on 50 other channels. Like it's not like this like Sunkist or whoever the hell it was at the time, like bought a commercial slot, and they were like, we buy this commercial slot to be after when Richard Nixon dies. Like it has no significance whatsoever. No. But in my stupid kid brain,
that's funny.
Like
Quinn.
That I thought that was going to be the most important thing of the 90s.
That's a good memory.
Yep.
So let's pick it up here with the 95-96 season, Michael Quinn.
Sure.
What do we have going on in the lineup now?
So the 95 and 96 season, there are some changes.
Okay.
But we do stay relatively the same for the fall and the winter.
Okay, so what is our leadoff?
Of course, it's Family Matters.
Still holding
Now,
strong.
Holding strong, but taking a dip in the rate big time from last year.
What do we
Number
got?
43.
Okay, so it went down, yeah.
It's 10.5 rating, right? And now you got to remember, we're getting to 95, 96, and cable's really starting to now like explode.
Sure.
Like TGIF is not the only game in town on Friday.
No.
Yeah.
And especially with the advent of and the accessibility of things like Cartoon Network.
Right. Kids didn't have to go to watch TGIF every Friday anymore. They could go turn Nickelodeon on. Well, Nickelodeon was not showing cartoons or anything, but
you had Comedy Central starting to step in. There were things going on.
Things were changing in the world of television.
Sure.
So the fall and winter season also includes Boy Meets World.
Okay.
So now Boy Meets World, I believe we didn't cover this, but the second season had happened, and now Mr. Feeney was the principal and all this.
Now they're in ninth grade, I guess.
Yeah, and I think like Vader's getting involved and nonsense like that.
Now Mr. Turner was still there. The cool teacher.
I don't know if Mr. Turner. I feel like Mr. Turner was only in not the second season, and then he was gone again.
I don't know. I think he might have been there for a few seasons.
I don't remember when they went to high school. To be honest with you, but Step by Step in the 9 o'clock spot.
Okay,
and now we have to be now at like the teenager style
of Step
show.
by Step. Yeah, 95, 96 is actually the last full season that if I'm remembering right, with Cody.
Right,
that's the last full season.
Step by Step also would move around after this too.
Yes.
So I remember also that there was an emphasis on that Al was now hot.
Al became hot.
Right. And there was also an emphasis that Stacey Keenan was hot, but she was a dork.
And she had like white hair. Her hair got white.
I don't know. She was the blonde and Al was the brunette. That was kind of, and then they were dating people, and like JT's now got girlfriends too. Like, so everyone's like dating and stuff.
And no one cares about Brandon.
No, well, Brandon's irrelevant. There is like a sad episode. Do you remember this where like Brandon feels neglected? It happened.
It's real.
Yes. They actually went out of their way to make an episode where like Brandon felt neglected and like Frank had to like console him, and then like Suzanne Summers gets in on the act and they all like do a party or something for him, or I don't know. It's really weird.
Worthless.
And now Hanging with Mr. Cooper in the 9:30 slot. So Hanging with Mr. Cooper, I feel like at this point was very strong in the slot. However, it took a dip in the ratings, number 61.
Whoa. That's
and
way
also,
down.
if you were now in the second season of having like Raven Simone live there instead, and Mark lives in that other room.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
The other room.
Yeah, it's like all different. But, so this is interesting. In the spring, they keep Family Matters and Hanging with Mr. Cooper in their respective areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they decide to bring in the 8:30 spot. Sorry. 8:30 spot. Muppets Tonight.
Oh, God, remember that?
It was like a Muppets news show, if I recall. Do you remember that shit?
It was like, it was the Muppets doing like a talk variety show type of thing.
And obviously that failed badly because they just, in the middle of that, they brought back Boy Meets World back into the 8:30 slot.
Good.
And now here's another weird one. It's just like they experimented and both the shows bombed. Aliens in the Family.
I don't remember this.
I do not remember that at all. It had 8 episodes. Good Lord. Yeah, it was some sci-fi-ish show. Just utter failure. And
live action, it was puppets, right?
I
think it was puppets.
American sci-fi sitcom. I mean, there's not much information on it.
Okay.
So whatever with that.
Whatever.
And very whatever, because then they just said, F it, Step by Step, come back to. So they basically restored it back to the same thing because both shows that they brought in bombed.
Mid-season replacements, maybe.
Right.
Now, for 96, 97, this is, in my opinion, the end of the glory years for TGIF.
Well, in your opinion, it is, but I actually was sort of a fan of these shows.
This is the last good season.
This is the thing, is they started to inject, to me, it's like they had Boy Meets World and it was like for boys.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost this aspect where, and I always felt that they were kind of taking off Snick, that they needed female-centric shows.
So what do we have going on for 96, 97,
So,
Quinn?
of course, Family Matters.
This is one of the worst seasons of Family Matters.
This is the last time for Family Matters,
This is its last ABC season. For 97, 98, it moved to CBS as part of their block party lineup. Now, Family Matters in 96, 97, by then, You could forget anything family or mattering.
It's sci-fi.
It's a sci-fi comedy.
Aliens in the Family Show. They said, you know what, we lost that, but Family Matters can really take up the helm there.
Yeah, this is the era where like Urkel is Bruce Lee. Or they're like fighting pirates and stuff, and he's building time machines.
Oh my god! Yeah, for some reason this show is bad, but there's like some kind of like. I kind of like the cheese.
Charm.
There's some charm to that cheese.
Yeah, there is. It's not good though.
Please.
Yeah,
like,
really.
Yeah, it's like so. Family Matters is like it's done after this. Like it's an 8.8.
ABC's like get the fuck out of here.
Number 50. I mean, it's the lowest it ever hit.
Leave.
So now they bring in Sabrina the Teenage Witch at 8:30. Now this show, I like this show.
Very good show.
Although the later seasons
She's not even a witch anymore, remember?
She's like a teenage or
She's just
college
Sabrina.
or something.
Now, Sabrina the Teenage Witch obviously starred Melissa Joan Hart, famous for explaining it all as Clarissa.
Clarissa explains it all.
Snick.
And it was a fantastic little show about a teenager growing up, but the added twist that she was a witch.
I liked it a lot, and I liked her cat Salem.
Yes, the quirky, spunky little talking cat.
I liked it.
And he was very snarky, too.
Yep.
And then in the 9 o'clock slot, they bring in Clueless, the television show, the most 90s thing you could possibly get.
Now, whereas the movie was great, the show, not so much.
Okay, so I have a guilty, admission.
Yeah.
I really like this show for some dumb reason because I like the movie Clueless, right?
Yeah.
This show was like the low rent version of Clueless.
Yeah.
But damn it, it tried so hard. It was like, I just felt like I could just tell they were trying with this show.
They were trying.
It had plots and you kind of cared and I don't know. It had a lot of the characters, but it famously, Alicia Silverstone was not Cher from the movie.
That upset a lot of people.
They had this other actress that looked like her.
Yeah.
And to this day, she's still a television actress. She's on certain other shows. I think she was on Another Period, a show from recently, a comedy. But it's a little. You watch it. I will say this: it's very charming as a '90s show. You look at it and you're like, wow, this is so of the time.
It was hard to get into as a kid. I will say this, Quinn, a little mini memory of my own while we're on the topic here.
Yeah,
Clueless, the movie and the show were developed, and the movie was directed by Amy Heckerling.
Right.
Now, Amy Heckerling also directed Look Who's Talking.
Right.
Also directed...
Did she do Baby Talk?
No, she did not. I believe she might have done Fast Times at Ridgemont. She did something like that in the 80s.
I don't think she directed it, but she didn't write it. That was by the guy... I forget his name. He was in... you remember that movie where the rock star or whatever... where the kid remember the movie where that kid became a writer for Rolling Stone or something? I'm a golden god, jumps off the roof or whatever.
But Amy Heckerling, interesting story, Michael. Yeah. When I was 17, I went out to L.A. with one of my friends because his uncle is a writer, was a writer at the time for My Wife and Kids, the Damon Wayans sitcom. He actually went on to become a writer for Arrested Development. But at the time, that hadn't existed yet. But anyway, so... upon my first night in Los Angeles from New Jersey at 17 years old, I am whisked away in a car to a party at Amy Heckerling's house.
Heckerling's house.
Yeah, for her daughter's high school graduation. Now, couple of things. A, Amy Heckerling's daughter, Molly, which is what the character in Look Who's Talking was named after. Kirstie Alley's character, offered me some weed. And... I turned it down, which I don't know why.
That's weird.
I was smoking weed at the time in my life.
Right.
I just said no.
Yeah.
You
just said no. I mean, you must have got the messages, the PSAs during the TGIF was rubbing off on you.
Yeah. But not only that, another actress, Twink Kaplan, who is not a well-known actress.
Who?
But she is a friend of Amy Heckerling, and she appears in Clueless, the show.
As who?
I don't remember her name. Maybe I can look, actually. But also, she's in Look Who's Talking. She was just a minor character actress. Let me see what her character was in Clueless. Mrs. Geisthall.
Oh, Mrs. Geist. Yeah, the teacher.
So, Twink, we gave her a ride back to her house.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I sat in the back of a car next to Twink.
Interesting.
So that's just a little mini memory. So anyway, Quinn, that was
Clueless.
That was Clueless at 9 o'clock.
I think we've covered Clueless a lot here, but it was a really good little show. I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's underrated. Underrated gem of the 90s.
Okay.
Anyway, Boy Meets World is now in the 9:30 slot.
Okay.
Which is weird.
It is weird.
But that was only for the fall. So they realized like that doesn't belong there.
What'd they do for the winter and spring then?
So in the winter and spring, they decided to move Boy Meets World to the 8:30 slot.
Which much better there.
Yeah, and I believe it either stayed there. It was always there.
It was there for a while. Yep.
Anyway, and then they moved Sabrina to 9, which was actually a good spot because Sabrina got a good opening season, and I think they wanted to carry that over, and it did good in the 9 o'clock spot.
So what they do about 9:30?
So now they decide to move Clueless to 9:30. Right.
Okay.
And it does just about the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but they change that. They decide that can't go there, so they move step by step back to 9:30.
9:30. That's a weird
in
spot.
The spring.
Yeah, that's a weird spot.
And I believe Clueless got like kicked off ABC and went to like WB or something after that.
Clueless left, and also, as with Family Matters, this is Step by Step's last season
on ABC.
It moved.
Yeah, and now we're in the full teenage mode again, like we said.
And but this is what you wanted to talk about. By then, Sasha Mitchell, Cody, had left Step by Step.
Right.
So they've replaced his comic relief character with Bronson Pinchot, but not as Balky, as a French hairdresser named Jean-Luc.
Oh la la, Frank, I'm so super happy to meet you. I have to tell you that after spending a week in Miami Beach with your wife,
different accent.
French accent.
That was weird, right? I mean,
really weird.
Jean-Luc, and he, it overpronounce everything. And
Jeté.
Yeah. A sagely advice, kind of like Cody.
He was Cody, basically.
He was Cody, just French.
Now, you know what my favorite memory of Bronson Pinchot is?
What?
It's not Balky, believe it or not. It's as the friend in Risky Business.
Oh, yeah. He's good in that.
I like him in Risky Business.
Yeah.
He's fun in that.
Yeah. Bronson Pinchot is a weird actor because I think he also looks a lot like Pee Wee Herman. I confuse him with
You think he looks like Paul Rubens?
He looks like Paul Rubens because do you remember Paul Rubens in the movie Blow?
Yeah.
Doesn't that look like I in my head, sometimes I confuse that that's Bronson Pinchot.
Well, there is a scene of Bronson Pinchot doing coke off of somebody, but it's not Blow.
Yeah.
Forget
whatever.
what movie it is.
We got to move on here.
We got to keep going. So 97, 98, Quinn.
To me, 97, 98 was the last like kind of golden time.
I didn't like this season, but go ahead.
I think they had something here. They had in the fall, winter, and spring. So this is weird though. So in the fall, winter, and spring, they had Sabrina on the whole. Sabrina's now the Family Matters. Like Family Matters is out. I think Sabrina's in.
I think that's a logical choice for your lead.
Yeah, and I think the Sabrina third season, that's like it's still in its prime.
Still good, yep.
Right? So then Boy Meets World again in the 8:30 slot.
Yep, and that
Boy Meets World is hitting its stride now.
They're still in high school there. I remember that season very well.
Yeah, is that the Vader one?
Yeah, no, 96, 97, and that's Vader.
And what about Sean's dad, Ghost or whatever? Is that in that one
That
too?
might be later, and I don't think the Lawrence kid, Matthew Lawrence, Michael Lawrence, whatever Lawrence kid.
Yeah.
I don't think he's joined just yet. Sean's like half brother.
Oh, right.
Now, wasn't Sean's dad Harry the hardware store guy?
Yes, from Home Improvement. You're correct. But he dies at some point, and then he's a ghost in an episode.
He is one of the few characters I can think of, or the few actors I can think of to have a heart attack on two different shows. Because on Home Improvement, he has a heart attack.
Yes. Oh,
and then
my goodness.
on Boy Meets World, he has like a more dramatic heart attack.
It's almost like any character he played was told, you're only going to be on for a season, and they would always
and then
kill
you're
him
going to have a heart attack.
Yeah. So the next... This is weird. So you'll have to explain this to me because I'm very confused.
9 o'clock?
9 o'clock, only in the fall, was You Wish. What the hell is that?
It was somewhat... See, ABC did some weird stuff in the later 90s where they went into the more fantasy realm. They were already doing it with Sabrina. And there was another show, which we'll probably get to, called Teen Angel.
Right, that's after it.
Yeah, You Wish was like I Dream of Jeannie, but the freaking 90s version. It was stupid.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it was not good.
Okay, well, then Teen Angel comes on, and I don't even remember that either.
That show was awful. I remember watching that when that was new. Basically, that was like about a dead kid, I think.
What the hell?
That died from eating like an old hamburger.
What?
And then he gets sent back to Earth as a guardian angel.
Great.
It's not
thrilling.
good. It's really bad.
Well, that shit sucks so bad.
Yeah.
This is absolutely bizarre to me.
Okay.
So in the winter and spring, they decide, let's put Sabrina on twice on TGIF. Because Sabrina was on not only at the 8 o'clock slot, but it would come on again at the 9 o'clock slot.
That might have been where they were just rerunning older ones to fill
Sabrina
time.
was like a hit.
Yeah, that was their best show. That and Boy Meets World. That's all they had.
I'm thinking they were like, let's just give them 2 Sabrinas.
That might have been what it was.
Yeah, but it was only for a winter and spring.
Yeah, I don't remember it, but that had to be what it was.
But so Teen Angel stays for fall and winter, but
Yeah.
then they move You Wish into Teen Angel slot, and I guess Teen Angel just disappeared or something.
I remember it sucking really
So
badly.
You Wish took its slot at the 9:30.
And now we get to an odd time.
We're near the end.
Let's
we're
set the
near
stage.
the end of TGIF is waning.
Let's set the stage here because now we're talking 98, 99.
Right.
Now by 98, 99, the whole pop culture of the 90s had changed.
It shifted.
Since the inception of TGIF, right?
Right.
It was no longer cool to be like, have some fun, show you how it's done, TGIF.
Everything was extreme in these days.
We're talking about the era of Howard Stern, the era of South Park.
Like extreme sports.
Extreme sports.
Yeah.
And on the wrestling side of things, if you follow that, it was the Attitude Era.
Right.
Lots of vulgarity, breaking taboos.
Right.
It was no longer cool to have Jerry Springer. Another thing was very big.
Oh yeah, there was so much edginess. It was all
Edginess.
about the edge and Tude and
Yes.
all this.
So it was no longer cool to have these nice family-oriented little show you how it's done, have some fun TGIF.
It's interesting that TGIF in 97 and 98 made a last-ditch effort to have 2 like an angel show and
like a genie show.
Genie show,
Really
yeah.
stupid. So what do we have for 98, 99, Quinn?
So this is bizarre because I barely remember this show. 2 of a Kind.
Sure, that was Miller Boyette's last show.
Really?
And it was the Olsen twins.
Oh, this. Yes. They brought in the Olsens as a last-ditch effort,
This
didn't they?
was a very strange situation where you had the Olsen twins.
Oh my God, I remember this show now. It was the one where they tried to act all grown up, right?
Yes.
But they were still
They
kind
were
of
like
young.
12.
Yeah.
They're only a month younger than you.
Yes.
So they were like 12.
Right. They're
And-
like sassy and
Yeah.
fashionable.
Exactly. And it's weird because it's basically like their dad is a widow,
Yes.
but they're in Chicago this time. And there's like some girl that's like a student of their dad's that like helps him raise them.
It's creepy.
And it's just not a good show.
Yeah,
It's just
I don't
not.
remember it lasting long, but I do remember the notable, like they hyped the shit out of it.
Olsens are
They're
back.
like the Olsens are back and they're on TGIF and they're edgier and more adult-like, right?
Oh, didn't you hear? A crazed killer escaped from the county jail. It was all over the news. Since you're going to be up here all alone tonight, I wanted to be sure that you were safe. Yeah, right.
So Boy Meets World retains its slot, and now Boy Meets World is like...
Now they're in college, I think. Or almost.
They were kind of cool back then. I remember thinking that Boy Meets World was like in its cool phase, the college years.
I actually did really like it. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
It increasingly moved away from like Corey's family life at home and everything. It was
Right.
more about.
It was more about like friends growing up.
It was more about friends growing up.
I like that the brother became more...
Eric?
became more like grown up, and he was like, he wanted to help his dad out, and like there was just some charm to it.
There was.
Yeah, there was that show really kind of...
It was still
its second
okay.
act was good.
It was still okay, and Topanga was always good looking.
Yeah.
I always loved Danielle Fishel.
Yeah, she was a heartthrob at that point.
She was, and if she's out there, Danielle, still like you.
Now, Sabrina takes the 9 o'clock spot, and Sabrina again is now... It's nearing the end of the witch phase, I think, and
Yeah.
going into the more teenage phase.
She's becoming more just Sabrina-y.
Now, there's a lot of stability in this lineup, by the way. I'm going to say there's no changes. There's only 4 shows. And Brothers Keeper takes the slot at 9:30. I don't
so vaguely remember that. All I know
Yeah.
about it is that it was not good
Yeah,
because it wasn't on long.
It only had 1 season. I don't
Yeah.
think there's much to say about Brothers Keeper. And we head into the final year of TGIF, the classical era,
The
which we'll
classic
cover.
TGIF, yeah. Now, this was 99, 2000, so they made it to 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's very fitting on this podcast,
it
the
is.
90s podcast, sort of.
Yeah, we didn't plan that, actually.
Yeah, that TGIF kind of begins and ends with the 90s.
Yep. So what do we have for our final lineup, Quinn?
So for the fall, they tried the Hughleys out in the 8:00 slot.
And that show is okay.
Is okay.
It was not great. D.L. Hughley is a fairly funny comedian.
Yeah. Was it like...
It's
am I
just a
remembering
sitcom.
correctly that it was more like a Cosby Show kind of thing?
I mean, nah, yes and no. The bottom line is it was a decent sitcom, but like a lot of sitcoms, unless you have a really good cast and a really good story, if you transplant a stand-up comedian to a family sitcom...
Well, they tried that a million times.
It only works if you have the right surroundings. Like, I never thought the George Lopez show was that good.
Right.
And he's like a good stand-up,
Mm-hmm.
but like Home Improvement, it really worked.
Right.
Roseanne, it really worked.
Yeah.
And Cosby Show, it really worked because you have a great supporting cast. But something like this, where
It
you
was just Hughley by himself, if I recall, and just nobody's...
It's not that good. Yeah.
Yeah. So that didn't work because it ranked number 77. That's awful.
Woof.
Yeah, 8.4 on a network. So, and Boy Meets World comes in to save the day at the mid-season, mid-fall.
Right.
They move it to 9 or 8 o'clock.
Right.
Now, originally, Boy Meets World was in the 8:30 slot. Sorry.
Okay. Yep.
And it did poorly there too. And they when they made that switch, they put Odd Man Out in 8:30.
I'm not even going to pretend to remember what that was.
Yeah, screw that show. I don't really remember it. Sabrina retains her spot at 9 o'clock the whole way through of this.
Wow.
And all this turmoil. Sabrina doesn't move.
Good for her.
And Sabrina was getting number 57. So that's a dramatic difference between the other two.
15 slots down.
Yeah. Then in the fall, initially in the fall, Odd Man Out was in the 9:30 death slot. So they had moved it in, like, there was all this shifting, it looks like.
Okay.
And the Hughleys, they moved back because it failed so bad.
So they wanted it to benefit from a lead-in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that from Sabrina, they wanted it to benefit. Now, when we get to the winter and spring, this kind of goes to show you how effed up TGIF was at this point.
Right.
Because now they move Boy Meets World retains the 8 o'clock slot, right?
Where it could be. That makes sense.
In the winter and spring,
sure,
right?
That makes sense.
Odd Man Out in the winter now goes into the 8:30 slot. And then Sabrina's still there. And then the Hughleys now are at 9:30.
Jeez, it got bumped around all over the place.
So now we get to the spring now. Odd Man Out is completely the Odd Man Out now. It's not even a thing.
Right.
And the Hughleys move back to
8:30?
Well, they never were 8:30, but they moved to 8:30.
Jeez.
Sabrina retains. Boy Meets World is the same. And then Making the Band.
The MTV show?
Making the Band.
Yeah, but that was on
the MTV reality show.
It started on ABC, huh?
So yeah, there you go. And that's Making the Band. If you think about it, was the last thing anybody ever saw on TGIF as TGIF.
Ugh. Now, that's not a good way to go out.
Yeah.
But again, if it was good, it wouldn't have gone out. However, it did revive briefly in 2003 to 2005, and I'll go through that real quick here before we wrap up.
Brief.
George Lopez for the 2003-2004 season. Speaking of George Lopez, anchored the 8 o'clock slot. After that, we had two splits here. For the fall, we had Married to the Kellys. No idea what that is.
I don't know either.
And for the spring, we had The Big House. Also don't know what that is.
This is ABC trying to reinvent itself at this point. I mean, it's not.
It didn't
it's
work
not the
yet.
ABC we know.
No. For 9 o'clock, all the way through, we had Hope and Faith.
I remember that. It was Kelly Ripa.
Was it really?
I believe so. It was Kelly Ripa and somebody.
You're right. And then we had
Faith Ford.
Life with Bonnie in the 9:30 slot, which that was Bonnie Hunt. I don't remember this at all.
No, this is when this was a absolute failure.
Now we have a decent show for the 2004-2005 lead.
Yeah.
8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter.
It was just called 8 Simple Rules by that point.
Unfortunately, John Ritter had already died.
Yeah.
Another mini memory for you. On that same trip to LA, Michael, where I went to ABC Studios to watch a cast read through of my wife and kids script.
Right.
On the elevator up to the studio where this was, who do I meet in the elevator?
John Ritter.
But John Ritter, because he was currently working for ABC.
The problem child himself.
2 weeks before he died, Quinn. 2 weeks before he died.
It's very sad.
But I got to meet him. I love John Ritter.
It's weird about John Ritter is I really always think about him with Problem Child, the dad and Problem.
You don't think of Three's Company?
No.
That's weird.
That was my introduction to him. So
okay, fair enough. And then we have for the 8:30 in 2004, 2005, Complete Savages.
I don't even know.
No idea. And then Hope and Faith again for 9 o'clock, and Less Than Perfect for the 9:30 spot.
And that's the very tail end. TGIF is no more.
And there was a third run as Comedy Friday.
It's not the. We're not going to.
And basically, let me put it this way:
they're still doing it.
If you like Shark Tank, then you watch this run. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's put it that way.
So in retrospective.
Yeah,
TGIF. What do you think?
We have some acid washed memories of it. I mean, as a kid, I mentioned in the beginning, as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9, 10, 11, that was the place to be.
Oh yeah,
in terms of watching Friday night television, because I wasn't going. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't do anything.
No, well,
I stayed home and I watched TV.
Definitely from 1989 to 2000, I wasn't going out on Friday nights for a decade. Yeah,
I don't even go out on Friday nights now anymore.
Yeah. But for in all seriousness,
Yeah,
this was the prime time, no pun intended, of our childhoods.
It was.
This
exactly.
was when we watched TV.
This is what you did, and your parents let you watch it because it was safe.
Yes. I mean, it tried to get a little edgy, but it never worked.
But you didn't have to sneak around to watch TGIF.
Right.
You didn't have to hide that from your parents. So I give ABC credit there.
No, they put a very safe block. And, I will say this. It was well designed because if you think about it, where were the kids leaving the TV when they turned it off? On
7.
On channel 7, or 7 in our area, maybe 5 or wherever you're from, where ABC was on.
And what's on the next morning?
What's on the next morning when they turn on the TV is the cartoons. And ABC was always, to me, one of the better cartoon lineups.
In fact, Quinn, one final mini memory or tidbit, I guess, for you folks before we close out. Quinn and I, for the record here, you're a new fan, maybe you've never watched wrestling or listened to our podcast.
Yeah.
We have known each other not since we were that age. We've actually only, I say only somewhat facetiously, known each other since 1999.
Right.
But we have a lot of parallels growing up, being about the same age, from the same area.
Right.
We were both raised and reared on ABC as our news network.
News network. It was my everything.
That was our network.
I mean, really, a lot of the shows on ABC were all coming of age for me.
And I'm wondering if some of that is due to the influence of TGIF.
It possibly is.
Possibly is. So, folks, we really hope you enjoyed this inaugural episode number 1 of Acid Washed Memories. We will be back to talk to you about more memories from the 90s, because Quinn and I remember the 90s.
We were there.
We were there, so we hope you enjoyed this episode. We are so excited to be able to reminisce away with you.
Yes.
Tell your friends. Let them know about this podcast.
Call your friends on your landline.
Yeah, operators are standing by.
No CODs.
No CODs. Until next time, have a great rest of your week. We will see you next time.
Thank you.